So I would like to read from my narcissistic Bible. It comes from the book of Luke, chapter 15. And it says, he told them this parable, would not Shawn, if he had 100... Seriously, it says Shawn in the Bible. It's a personalized Bible. Would not Shawn, if he had 100 sheep and lost one of them, leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one that was lost until he found it? When Shawn found it, he would carry it on his shoulders, rejoicing. When Shawn comes home, he would call together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, as I have done with you. How many of you? Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep, which was lost. I tell you that even so there was more joy in heaven when Shawn repented than over 99 religious people who need no repentance. Or would not Shawn, if he had not 10 silver coins and he had lost 1 silver coin, light a lamp, sweep the house, and seek diligently until he found it? So, Shawn is here to tell you about the lost sheep. It's like thousands of times in here it says Shawn. Yeah, it's all about me. What?
Is it really called the Narcissist Bible?
No, it's called it's called the personalized Bible. Although I did find one similar to it on a very narcissistic friend's shelf, and I said, David, I want one of these. And so he got me one. Now, the Holy Spirit's interpretation, which is all of us, says, the one who seems lost the one who seems lost for whom you are looking is you. That one who is you seems lost in the crowd of illusion because you believe illusion. There is confusion about who you are. So let's talk about that now, that you may know who it is you are looking for as you look for the lost you. I've already said that you see yourself as a separate identity. This you willingly acknowledge, but you acknowledge this as a fact when it is not a fact. It is a perception. That the you that is lost is not lost in reality, but it is lost within the perception of yourself as separate. For you are not separate and never have been and never could be. It is only this truth that is lost to you. And I have told you before that the truth is always true. So let's talk about this in the lost sheep. The lost sheep, of course, is about thoughts. Everything is about thoughts, because it is our thoughts that create our experience of everything. And so Jason, the parable there about the people around him, the Pharisees, what have you, are like, oh, so what? One sheep is missing there. Doesn't matter. Look, you have 99 good ones. And Jesus says, but we have the shepherd has to go get the one that is lost. The others don't need saving. It's this one. And so if we look at our thoughts, and we have 99 amazing thoughts, 99 that are truly connected to divine understanding, divine love, and you have this one errant thought that's out in the wilderness, the one thought that thinks it is separate from God. And that's the one that keeps us out of the kingdom. It is that one thought, and it's hating that one thought will not do it. Now you got 2 thoughts. Now you got 98 positive and 2 that are keeping you out of the kingdom. See, to hate our misunderstanding thoughts, to hate our thoughts of separation, is to keep us separate. And so we will just multiply those if that's what we focus on. So we have to go and save that one thought to remind it of the truth. And that's why I did the correct perception the way I did today. That so many things, oh, I need prayers. Oh, I need this. Oh, I need this. And I know many of us have seen a lot of very positive result as a result of prayers. And sometimes I think we've seen positive results in spite of prayers. Because so many of our prayers are affirming the absence of the very thing we want, which is life, and life more abundantly. That's what we want. We want to know life. We want to know eternal life. We want to know that life didn't start with a body and it won't end with a body, that life is. And that we're always in it, and we're always living it. And then someone who has suffered, they ask, well, then why do I have to suffer? Then why do I? And I say, I don't know. Why do you? Why do you have to suffer? Stop suffering. And then when I've been in pain, I thought, oh, this is what they're talking about. Especially if it's a pain that doesn't seem to end. This is what they're talking about. But I also know it is my thoughts that this pain is never going to end that keeps me suffering. Because there's a lot of people who have a lot of ailments and a lot of stuff going on that do not suffer. They have stuff. But we're here because there are people in our history who said, we don't ever have to suffer again. Life is eternal and all healing is possible, and it all starts in the mind. Not the intellect, but the mind. If I, in my individual mind, am willing to connect with divine mind, the very source of thought itself, to look at that, so that when I look for the lost sheep, when I go looking and say, oh, that's the thought that's holding me back. That's the thought that is keeping me sick. That's the thought that's keeping me poor. That's the thought that keeps me lonely. It's that thought. And it's like, but I like that thought. That thought is comforting. Even though it keeps me miserable, that thought is comforting because at least about that thought, I'm right. At least I'm right about that. And I have nothing else. You don't understand, Shawn. I don't have anything but being right about this. And it's like, do you really want to be right? Better to have nothing. Nothing is better than being right about what is wrong. And it seems like, well, if I have nothing, then what I do, and I say, find out. Change it into, I have no thing. I have no thing with this. I have no thing with lack. I have no thing with sickness. I have no thing. One friend of mine who reached out for prayers, and months ago I was talking to her, and I said, what I suggest you do is find therapy in some way to deal with affect tolerance. And someone say, what's affect tolerance? Affect tolerance, to my understanding, is when you cannot tolerate anything that is out of your current mode of thinking. If the coffee is late, if the TV won't work, if something happens on the internet, your phone isn't fast enough, a loud noise happens, anything that and you cannot tolerate it, and you must lash out, you must scream at somebody, you must do something to hurt yourself or another. And it's like, let's all work on some affect tolerance and getting understanding of it. I assume the work you do has to do with that. Am I right, Deb? Yeah. And so to learn how to be with what is taking place in the world around you that you see. The lyrics that Kenneth just sang, I don't need to know. What if we don't need to know the cause of all the problems? And we don't even need to know how the solution is going to come about. What we need to work on is the willingness to know that healing is possible. Healing is possible in this. Healing is possible with this. I got an email this morning, a little newsletter from someone I used to go to for therapeutic stuff who did emotional healing, and he was writing about himself in that he just had a great overcoming. He said as a kid, he loved swimming and he loved diving off the high dive. Just loved it. It was his favorite thing. And one day in his enthusiasm, he climbed up that ladder and he got to the top and he missed a handle and he went backwards. broke down. And he said somehow he was able to make his fall more gentle, and it just knocked the wind out of him. But he said people came running, which only made the thing scarier. People were so worried and so upset, and in his child's mind, it became worse than it actually was. And he wanted to get over it, and so he did try climbing back up, and he got so scared up there, somebody had to help him down. And in all these years, he's not been able to do it until recently, and he posted a video of him ziplining over a river because he wanted to heal the child's fear. He wanted to do something to heal that child's fear, and I really did think about that. What would I heal of my own? And I have plenty of things which I'm not going to list right now. But what do you have? You don't have to list them with me. But the little things, where we got a shock as a child, a shock to the system. Maybe even as an adult, you got a shock to the system that you weren't ready for. And where would you stand out to show up for the possibility of another shock? But now you have the tools to know what to do with the shock to your system. And the Bible tells us, let your yeses be yes and your nos be no. And it doesn't say, and then explain them away. It says, let your yeses be yes and your nos be no, so that you can know what's the next thing. Many people in this church have done it through singing and comedy. Many individuals have stepped up at the retreats when somebody steps up in David's class. Somebody who says, oh, I was told not even to sing happy birthday as a child. I was so awful. And they get up and they sing happy birthday or let there be peace on earth or something, and they sing it on pitch. What that heals of childhood shame, of embarrassment, and it heals a multitude of sins and embarrassment. When you can be somewhere and you make a mistake and you can laugh at it because there's no one there to shame you anymore for having made a mistake, to say you should have known better. When you don't have those people in your life anymore and you prove it by making a mistake. Many of you have seen me sing and you see me forget a lyric and I say, oh, what's a lyric? And then I go on with the song because it doesn't matter that I went up on a lyric. It doesn't matter. Of all things that might matter in this world, forgetting a lyric isn't one of them. Let's look at it in its correct perception. Really, did forgetting a lyric burn down your house? Did forgetting a lyric make anyone sick? Did forgetting a lyric make anyone hate you? No. So clearly, or going off pitch, or having nothing to say at a party. Here's a trick of mine. You want to go to a lot of us get anxious to go to parties because we don't know what we're going to do. And I have discovered at more than one party that it often does not work for me to go in up to a group who's already engaged at a party, especially if I don't know anyone else at the party. So what I often do is look for an empty room and I sit down. Because I'm okay now to be by myself. I don't feel like I'm going to be looked at like what's wrong with him. I find suddenly the circle begins to fill around me. And people, now I'm the leader of the conversation. And people are interested. They ask questions because they came and sat down with me. And they didn't come and sit down with me to be asked questions. They came and sat down, so they're under obligation to start asking. And I found that is a great way to get comfortable at social gatherings, is if you don't know anybody, go find an empty spot and sit there. They will come to you. Try it. I witnessed this when I was a teenager. I watched a woman. She sat in an empty living room. Suddenly, that living room was full of people. And she didn't have to break the ice. So I know these things work. Another good prayer that I have used is, I am willing to be part of the party. I've had some great evenings after that prayer. And so what I learned is there are so many ways to take the pressure off. And putting the pressure on is that lost sheep. Putting that pressure on that I have to fit in, that I have to do something to make people like me. Well, you might. You might have to stop behaving in a certain way in order to be likable in the world. Because, well, I guess even the biggest creeps and the biggest fools have friends. But not a lot of them. And so to look at that and say, oh, I have something to offer. I have something to offer. Everyone may not want what I have. Everyone doesn't want to meet me at a party and talk about God or spirit or correct perception. I've had people walk away when they find out I'm a minister because they're afraid I'm going to judge them. And I might. Probably not about their God stuff, though. And it's but to look at it more in their outfit, really. But it's but it's what is your lost sheep? What's your lost sheep that you need to go and reinform? That you can leave the rest of your thoughts here. You're not going to abandon your thoughts, but you know they're safe. You don't have to protect them. The lost one, say, hey, come here, talk to me. What's up? What do you think's missing that you have to go do this? Yeah, you don't have to go steal to get your abundance. You don't have to go take from someone else to get your abundance. You don't have to go complain all day in order to be healthy. You don't have to do this. You don't have to go get lost in the world in order to experience your good. You don't have to hide from the world in order to experience your good. I was talking with a friend of mine this morning who some people want to stay at his apartment. They've asked, and they were very good. He just got this apartment, and the previous tenants, and it was arranged. They merely made arrangements for him to be there, but it was for 5 days, and it's freaking him out. And so he said no originally. He said, I'm too early on in my healing to be able to have this. And then a mutual friend spoke to him, and then we spoke today, and I said, what if it made you bigger? What if that were the thing? And they're going to leave. It's not like they're moving back in. They will stay this long and they will leave. And he said, but I'll be uncomfortable. I said, yeah, so? What if you're uncomfortable for 5 days? But when they leave, you've done a generous act. You've broken your isolation. I said, besides, they're coming to New York. They're not coming to your place to watch TV. Nobody comes to New York City to sit in an apartment in Inwood and watch TV for 5 days. They don't miss the apartment. And so to begin to look at that, and suddenly he said, oh my gosh, I'm about to become my mother who sits at home alone every day of her life and can't have company. She couldn't come to her grandson's wedding because it was too much for her. And he realized, oh, I'm becoming my mother. And so he's changed his mind, and he's going to invite them now to come and stay with him because it is the bigger thing to do. When I say big, I don't mean better than. I mean, it will make him bigger in consciousness. So, to reinform your lost sheep, will that make you bigger in consciousness? Will that give you a chance to breathe instead of to be guilty? Will that open everything up? And you don't know how it's going to happen. Sometimes on the highway, more frequently than it used to be, I let somebody pass. And it's fine. Even if they're going too fast. I feel my discomfort. When I say too fast, we're talking above 90. When people are doing that on highways, it freaks me out a little. But so what? So what? Do I have to hate them and then hate myself? Because if I'm hating you, I'm hating me. Because there's no separation. It's a tough one. It's a big tough one. Somebody was telling me about, I forget, some member of their family who had been unkind or someplace. And then they said, but it's all good. I said, what are you talking about? Now you've just made me miserable. Now I hate your mother. I mean, your cousin, whoever it was. Don't tell me it's all good after dumping a big mess. It's all good. Is it really? Is that what you think? If it were all good, you wouldn't have had to tell the story in the first place. It doesn't feel good. It feels very uncomfortable. And sometimes discomfort is the lost sheep. So, on this day, where we know so many of us are seeking, how about if we go ahead and find? Let's find our lost sheep. Let's reinform that dear little lamb so that all the sheep can be aligned with God. That all beings, all thoughts can be in alignment with what is true. And here's the safety catch, even though it may seem very dangerous. We don't have a clue how this could happen. And we don't need to know. Could we just walk from here today assuming there's more than enough life for me, and I have it. There's more than enough love for me, and I have it. There's more than enough money for me, and I have it. There's more than enough good for me, and there's more than enough good for my neighbor, and there's more than enough good for my family, and there's more than enough good for all beings. And I don't know what that means, but I'm willing to know that it's true, because that is the logical thought. And for that, I can say thank you and amen.